So we have here today Mr. Fritz Bondoa, a second-generation student from Cameroon, Africa. First, I want to thank you for being with us today.
It's an honor being here. Thank you.
So we're going to jump right into the interview. When did you first come to the States?
Well, I moved to the States when I was 8 years old. So I came to America in 2001, February of 2001. My dad moved to the United States in November of 1993. My mother and my two brothers moved to the United States in May of 1997. One of the reasons that we moved to the United States was because my dad felt that the political leadership in Cameroon, the government, the way the government was structured, would not be conducive to our growth, meaning his children. And so he felt that the United States would provide us with better political and economic opportunities for our growth. Mm-hmm.
When asked, what is your ethnicity here in America, how do you typically respond?
First and foremost, I say that I'm black. Because for me, because I'm sure you're alluding to the question whether I identify myself as African or whether I identify myself as African American. And I think those two, and I might be completely wrong, but I think those two are one and the same for me. And because there's a portion of me that's African. I was born in Africa. I was raised in Africa. My parents are African. So I'm African by birth. But there's also a portion of me that I feel that I'm African American. I was raised in Newark, New Jersey, in a predominantly black neighborhood, a predominantly black city. I went to a predominantly black high school, predominantly black elementary school, and my friends growing up were predominantly African Americans. So I think also culturally, in some respects, I'm African American.
So now let's change the geographic region a little bit. Now, if this question was presented to you in Cameroon by your fellow peers that are Cameroonian, how does your response change, or if it does at all?
Yes. Still, I will see myself. I will identify myself as a Black American, as an African who happens to have African American citizenship, right? And I think I will still identify myself as both African and African American. But to them, they will see me as an African American. They won't see me no longer as African because they will feel I've lived outside the country for so long that I can no longer claim being African, right?
How do you think your identity fits in respects to other cultures, in respects to the Caucasian culture, the Asian culture, how they view you? Do they view you as similar to growing up as that just an African, and now you have to work for the American portion? Or are now you just an African American because of your skin color?
Yeah, I think here at the university, I don't think white students, make a distinction between African and African American, nor do I think that they understand or care there's a distinction.
Now, so you're talking about that kind of ignorance from the cultures here at UVA, acknowledging where you're coming from based on skin color. Do you think skin color was more of a deciding factor growing up in the African American community as opposed to here at the university?
I think I've assimilated pretty well into American culture. So I don't think white students make the effort to understand or to acknowledge if there's a difference between African Americans and African students. Because in some respects, I think there are some differences, especially if you spent the majority of your life in Africa and you're coming here just to be a student. I think there's a difference in the way you act. But like I said, I don't think white students sort of make an effort to make that distinction. So here, I think I'm just toward them it's more color. Well, you look black, so you're African American.
where do you think identity comes from? Do you think it's just what you're born with, or is it something that is molded by your experiences?
I think that's a very good question. I like right now. I would say I'm more. Like I said, I don't think there's a distinction personally for me between African American and African. Especially, I don't think there's a distinction. I think our cultures overlap, and there are way more similarities than we think, right? But I think if you do want to make a distinction between African American and African, I think I'm more so African American because that's just the people I grew up around. Those are the experiences that I know. I feel that my home is in America, not in Cameroon, because this is where I've grown up. This is where I've formed my identity. This is where I form my opinions on different issues. I mean, it has been influenced by the people I've been around. So, as the president, the first president of Ghana, and Kwame Nkrumah once said, he said, "You are African not because you were born in Africa. You are African because Africa was born in you." So the idea that it's not the place where you were born, not the physical place where you're born. It's the people you surround yourself with, the experiences that you go through, that that um, um, that gives you your identity, and that helps form who you are as a person.